Hello and welcome to another episode of Random Access Memory Stories to Bite with me, Jake Bernardez, and today I have with me Tim Chase, Field CISO at Orca. Now, what we spotted before, Tim, just lift up your shirt a little bit so you can see we are both wearing football jerseys, but from very different football types. I'm wearing an obscure Curaçao away jersey that will never be worn because they never got far enough in the World Cup. And Tim, what is yours?
University of Tennessee Volunteers.
There you go. So between us, we are sporting representation tonight, and the World Cup actually only finished on Sunday, so we're pretty well on brand at the moment. Although the American football season has not started yet, right?
Getting ready to start in about a month. Countdown, man.
So we're in between in that transition phase. Interesting. We recorded this at RSA, and the audio went horribly wrong. So we're coming back around for round two, which is good because I got to sit down, watch the video, and think, what did I want to ask Tim? What were the hard questions I never got to? So this is going to be way more fun. So we'll roll with it. So
way harder is what I just heard.
Yeah, fun for somebody. I'll ask you to start the same way as always. So please tell us who you are, what you do, your hobby, and your hero or inspiration in life. Tim, over to you.
Yes. So my name is Tim Chase, Field CISO, former CISO in the past. I live in Nashville, Tennessee. I work for Orca Security. My hobby is really, I'm kind of in that part of life where my hobby is my kids. But if I had to pick a hobby outside of kids, it is definitely sports. Football and hockey. American football and hockey are kind of my two that I gravitate towards. And as far as hero, I would say my sports hero has to be the great one himself, Wayne Gretzky. Love how he played, love the kind of person that he is, and loved his philosophy of taking chances in life, right? If you don't ever, you miss all the shots you don't take, right?
There it is. I was going to say, is he going to get to it? I know nothing about ice hockey. I've been to quite a lot of ice hockey games for various hospitality things. I know nothing about it, but I must use that quote to my son, to the kids' football team that I coach, and to various other people in my teams all the time about risk taking, right? If you don't shoot, You're going to miss.
My kids know it well. Like they play ice hockey themselves, and sometimes they get a little bit intimidated for whatever reason, the bigger kids or whatever. And I'm like, dude, you're not going to get better. If you don't go out there and try, you'll never know, right? They know it well too.
Interesting. Right, I want to start with something that you actually said yourself, which kind of led me straight in, right? So I looked at your background, and you went through from like systems engineering to QA to security testing to CISO. You did the CISO job twice, and then you left it, right? I'm assuming that you didn't like wake up one day and think, I want to be a field CISO, probably because it didn't exist at the time. So when you were back in that point, in that journey, what did you want to become? Like when you started your career, what were you thinking, this is what I want to do? Was it always security? Was it something different? What was it?
I didn't really know. I think I was a typical 22-year-old, graduated from college in a little bit of an economy where, people with 20 years of experience were taking jobs for a fraction of the, of the salary. And so it was kind of like, you're going to take whatever job you can get. Right. And I managed to get into a QA quality testing job. And I was like, okay, that's fine. But one of the things that I found I was pretty good at was there's a lot of technical stuff. There was the automation, there was the performance testing, right, where you're doing C scripting and all of that. And about that time, the company that I was working for, which was Willis, the same people who have the Willis Tower in Chicago, they were hiring their first CISO. They'd not had a CISO before. This was back, when even CISOs themselves were kind of new, right? And so he and I got to know each other quite well, still do, run into him all the time here in Nashville. And I was like, man, that's a pretty cool job. But like, why can't we do security testing as a part of all the other testing that I just named off, right? Like we're not doing anything. It was kind of and it wasn't his fault. Like if you think about in the 2000s, it was kind of this IDS, IPS, firewall sort of scenario where there wasn't a lot of protections once you got inside. There weren't a lot of customer facing applications that were external. And so like, that's just kind of where I got the start. Right. And so, I started manually doing some application security testing, right? You had your web application hacker's handbook on the left, the computer screen on the right, and you were just kind of learning as we go. And so I think that got me pointed in the right direction, I would say. And so it was the kind of the start.
So you kind of felt your way into it. You spent years though getting to the CISO chair, which you obviously at some point aspired to, right? And most people spend years of their career in our domains and industries getting there.
Yeah.
But what was missing Because at some point, it's at HealthStream, it's where you go from CISO to then Director of Field Security after that point at Calibra. What was missing that made you go, I spent all this time, I was ever getting here. You know what? That's not for me. I'm going to do something else.
Yeah, interestingly enough, at the time that I did that, and the role has changed a little bit. I think you're a good example of the CISO in a startup, kind of in a modern technology company. But at the time, CISOs were kind of in their lane, right?
Mm,
And they didn't get out and talk to vendors, talk to other people. It wasn't as big of a thing back when I was a CISO at HealthStream. And so I was like, well, I have an opportunity. I think I've kind of run the course here at HealthStream with what I want to do. And I was like, if I'm thinking of what I want to do next, like I like talking, I like going to events, I like evangelizing. I think talking about
mm.
security, teaching people about security and training. Um, what does that mean? Because I don't want to go full sales. Like that's not the life cycle of a that I wanted to lead, where you're taking people out to dinner every night and all of that. And so that's kind of where this field security, field CISO thing came into my life. I got a phone call from the recruiter at Calibra, who started talking about this thing's called options and what happens if they IPO. And I was like, oh, he may have dropped Google and as an example, which probably he overshot that a little bit there. But I decided to go down. I was like, that sounds pretty interesting, right? And so that was kind of it, because I felt like it was this mixture of I could still be a security practitioner, I can still talk about security, but at the same time, like I can go out and evangelize. I can talk about it with other companies. I can learn what other companies are doing that I can then take to other CISOs, right? But I'm not full sales. You're in the sales cycle. You're a part of it. Um, but you're not, you don't have this quota that you're beholden to
Which is
yet.
interesting. You've gone that point, right? You don't have a quota. You're not paid on sales or delivery of sales. Um, what you're saying, though, effectively, and maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, is that from an operational capacity, you almost felt that you were too sociable to be a CISO. Like you liked people too much to be a
Kind
CISO.
of.
Is that what we're kind of getting at? The field CISO is for the CISO who actually likes to talk to people.
It was, and I'll tell you a little bit even more than that, right? Like the company that I was at, the leader was really good. I don't want to say anything bad, but he kind of he didn't like me going and presenting, or for whatever reason that wasn't his thing, or training, or like all of that. So it was kind of like I like to go to RSA, and at that point I'd given at least two talks, I think, on like container security and things like that. And so it's like, but he kind of frowned upon that, and I was like, well, that's not cool. And so that was kind of the push that I needed. So yeah, I was a little too social, and wanted to teach and learn other people.
Do you think that all CISOs should have that skill? You touched on me being, I think I am an archetype of a modern CISO or a modern tech CISO. Do you think that all CISOs should now have that string in their bow? Do you think it's a requirement for a CISO now to be able to sit with customers, to present, to speak, to be on podcasts? Like, is this a skill set now people need to have that we just don't have enough quality, which is why field CISOs exist, because the CISOs themselves can't do it?
Yeah, I think that field CISOs exist for a couple of reasons, right? One is scale. I mean,
Yeah.
I used to run a team of 8 field CISOs because I can't be everywhere. CISOs have different niches. Healthcare, sometimes financial, depending on the size of the company, you might want to have the team organized differently. So like one reason is that just scale. But I do think that modern CISOs should try and get out there more and speak. They still seem to like to meet in their own little groups and things like that. But I think it really helps, both from a sales perspective, from a customer um, retention perspective. Just like they like talking to CISOs. Like one of my favorite CISOs to talk to um, is this great lady who works for like a transportation company, and that's one of the things that she does. She doesn't work for a startup. She doesn't work for a security company. She works for a logistics company, but she goes and she talks to a lot of the different customers. She'll do the site visits where she talks to their
Mm.
security folks, say, here's what we're doing to keep your data secure and things like that. And I think it means a lot. And so I do think that's something that most should aspire to, and it brings a little bit of authenticity to the role as well, and to what the sellers are saying.
Okay, well, let me ask then the awkward question, the elephant in the room, right? I've talked a lot on social media about the fact that I feel that even just being a vendor CISO, let alone a field CISO, you carry like a leopard bell around your neck, right? You walk around and people are like, you're not actually a real CISO, you're half a salesperson, right? And there's this messaging around field CISOs aren't CISOs. Does that piss you off?
Yeah, a little bit. Um, because it's funny. It's like I've been in that role. I have probably have more experience than some of the people that I'm talking to. Um, and yet they want to not treat you like you're a CISO. That doesn't happen all the time. Like there's plenty, as well as I do, that like you go and a lot of people understand the role. They like the fact you can speak their language, but there's a certain subset that automatically kind of take it and put you over here. Even people you've worked for a while. Like there was one company that I worked for, hired a person, um, got him in his role, did fantastic. And then I went over and, 3 years later, I knocked on the door to just say, hey, how things are going. Can I give you a hand with anything that you're doing? I know you're trying the software. And instead of him replying to me, I got a nasty gram from his boss, right? And so it's like, man, like both of them I'd worked with before, but the tables had just turned because I was on the other side, right? So that
Yeah.
does frustrate me because it's like I've been there. I understand it. I operationalized so many teams, not just when I was a CISO, but when I was a cloud security leader, application security leader, and all of that. Like I think it's turning a little bit. It's not quite like it used to be. I think maybe the tide's turning, but yeah, I
Well,
have
that
been
leads to the
told to
next
my
question because you've obviously
yeah.
you've done it in so many places, massive companies, right? You've held like Lacework, Calibra, like now Orca. You've held big roles at big, well-known brands. Have you ever had to defend that career choice? Because you made a point where you're like, some people go in and out of field CISO, normal CISO, whatever, right? But you've gone strategically. I'm gonna. This is my journey. This is who I am, right? This is who Tim is. Have you ever had to defend that? Where someone said like, "Why the hell are you doing this? You're making the wrong choice. Like you should be back in operations." Like, have you ever had to defend your own choice? Have you ever actually sat there and even questioned it yourself? Like, why have I done this?
I think sometimes you wonder kind of the what's next, right? You do wonder like, okay, I'm a field CISOs or something I want to do next. When you've run a team a pretty large number of field CISOs, you start to ask that question. So I've been asked by people like, what's the next career step for you? Or somebody who wanted to be a field CISO, they're like, what's after that? What's next? And so I do think about that. Sometimes, and I've been asked why that choice, why the career choice. And I still like being operational, and I would not say that I wouldn't ever go back to like being a CISO at a startup that kind of had that dual role. Like I think that skill set's still there, and I would still do it. So I wouldn't shut that door completely. But I have been asked that, or like asked kind of what's the career path for sure.
What do you think the one thing is that people fundamentally misunderstand about field CISO? If you had to pin down to one thing that people don't get, what is the one thing people don't understand about your job?
That we don't carry a Rolodex. Um,
Mm.
like there's been many times that I have been on um, you know calls or in the past when I've interviewed for jobs or whatever it happens to be, right? Um, and they're like, I'm like, what do you need me to do? Well, we need you to bring a bunch of CISOs over and schedule meetings for our product.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of goes back to what we just talked about. There's going to be, when a CISO goes to a field CISO role, there's potentially that subset of folks that are going to be like, yeah, I know, you're kind of a seller. I get it. And they'll treat you like like a sales guy. But I feel like putting a field CISO in this role where they just can text a bunch of CISOs to buy the product or whatever, like, I think that's putting them in a box that is not fair, right? Because there's other aspects to the role, the marketing aspect, the product aspect, and all that kind of stuff. So that part really does frustrate me sometimes.
I 100% agree because I get asked, obviously, in the vendor CISO role, which is kind of half field, half operational all the time, like, kind of, who can you bring into this room? I'm like, it's not what I do, right? I build a brand and like a messaging and authenticity. The customers who listen to me because I don't like pull them into a room. Like, if that's what you want from someone, that's not what I am, and it's not what I think you actually need because that's short sighted and it's transactional. Um, but you started talking about travel at the beginning in keynotes and conferences. Well, we had a conversation at RSA and we talked a bit about burnout, right? And about the fact that the travel gets to you, like the constant like pressure can get to you and stuff. Like when like have you ever been at a point where you've realized that and gone, like this is all great and I love doing this conferences and this travel and stuff, but this is too much. Like it's taxing me mentally or physically or from a family stance. Like have you ever had that experience?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I have to. It's something I have to constantly, measure, right? Like, I've got 4 kids. I've got a wife that works, and like the life of a field CISO. I'm traveling the next 2 weeks, right, for a conference in Grand Rapids, and then one in to Black Hat, right? And so it's kind of like, um, um, at some point, you got to really kind of keep that in perspective because, and I had to say no sometimes, right? It's to the point of, I've talked to the marketing folks and they'll be a gatekeeper for me, like, just the most important ones that you need and the customer success, like, let's do like one QBR with you this time. I'll hit up the other customer success rep for the QBRs for the next quarter. Like it's something that I constantly try and balance because I'm always very clear. Like I don't want to be a road warrior. Like that's just not who I am. I recognize it is part of it for the job, but you do hit your points where, when there's 3 weeks in a row that you're traveling, and then when you're not traveling, you're taking your kids to sports and trying to get the date night in with the wife and all of that kind of stuff. It's you know what I mean. Like um, it can be a lot, right? But there's also the reward side of it where you get to talk to a lot of customers about the cool stuff that you're doing. You get to meet a lot of cool people. You get to slip a hockey game into the trip that you feel a little bit guilty about, when the wife's home putting all the kids to bed and you're cheering on the local hockey team, right? But like there are positive aspects to it, but there's definitely the point. Like there's always a reset for me, and it happens a lot usually. Like maybe like at the end of the year when things kind of die down, you're like, all right, like how can I figure this out for next year? Because as much as I do, once conference season gets rolling, man, like it doesn't stop.
Yeah,
Between
I mean, I earlier in the year spent. I tell people proudly and embarrassingly that I spent 13 weeks going to and from the UK and multiple cities each week, like relentlessly, because like basically just overly booked myself, and I couldn't really get out of it because most of them weren't anecdotes; they were just me,
just
um,
you.
and it was hard. I assume then I think I know the answer to this question, but the biggest sacrifice then to be good in your job, to be a good field CISO, it's probably there's a requirement to be with customers and conferences, and that means sacrificing some family home
Yeah.
time, right?
Yeah. Like, um, the conferences don't care about what time it is, right? Like Black Hat's always my first kid, my kids' first week of school. Every single year, you miss the back to school part for the kids, right? And then obviously reinvent's always um, the right after Thanksgiving, right? And so you do soccer. You can't make it to all the soccer games. You can't make it to all the hockey games, right? There is a level of sacrifice there, but I think um, it is what it is, right? It's part of the job. It's worth it. The kids and the family understand. The key is, I think, just like with anything else, making the most of it when you're home, right? Being able to turn the laptop off at 4 at least until they go to bed and then maybe catch up and do some more stuff. But the key is like you know make the most of it. As an example, I drive my daughter's school bus, right?
Really?
For I do, yeah. I should have told you that was a
Is that a
interesting
proper
fact.
yellow
So
bus?
yeah.
Why did
It's
you not
white,
tell me this was your
but
hobby at the beginning? You drive an actual school bus. What the
I
hell?
do. Like so like when it was probably a couple years ago. I got the wild hair to just get my CDL. Like you have to go and get a CDL and endorsements and all this kind of stuff, right? It's not easy because my daughter needed a bus driver for her soccer team, and so I drive the big bus. So that's one of the ways that I like. That's one of the ways that I can like spend some time with her as she's doing her hobby when I'm home, right? Because I always offer to do that to the away games when they need it.
Yeah. Have your kids ever asked you to like? So, my kids always tell me I should be a plumber or electrician because the plumbers and electricians they know don't seem to travel anywhere. I don't know if you have the same experience, but that's when I noticed I was traveling too much when my kids said, "Have you ever thought about being a plumber?"
They haven't even been. They're not that smart, I guess. They're just like, do you really have to go again? Can't you just stay home and not work? I mean, that's what they tell me. And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
Okay, but
If you got that big exit by Google, right, then you wouldn't have a problem. The first
that's
time, I
right.
mean, I'm sure like me, the first time you learn about options, you have this like thing where you go home and you do your spreadsheet and you're like, oh, I'm going to be like a multimillionaire by 28. And you're like, oh, that's not how it works. Oh, damn.
I did that at one of my previous companies. I'll let you look at my resume and decide which one that was and how that ended. I did that.
I think I can make a very
times.
good guess. I was a customer at one point, but we'll leave that aside. So you'll be in a lot of customer meetings. And I could ask you about the ones that are great and what you learned, but for me, that's kind of the boring bit. I like the kind of awkward, difficult conversation. So, what is there one you have to name the customer that one customer meeting you've had as a field CISO, maybe in this role, that you just want to erase from history? It was so bad that you wish you'd never stepped in that room, and it was irrecoverable afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna narrow it down in my head. I mean, I've been yelled at before in a customer meeting. Like you get on, to do a roadmap or something, and then they just straight up tell you, I don't want to hear your roadmap. I've had these 3 tickets open for X amount of time, right? Like, why do I want to hear about your new features? Why don't you come on here and tell me what you're doing and why you're not fixing this issue? And like when you hear the issues, I'm like, but those are not the things, like those are important to you and I understand it, but like in the scheme of the security program, um, you don't know what you're talking about, right? So those are the ones that I
That's
get
never a good
frustrated.
thing to say, by the way.
It is not. I did not say that. It was more like, I hear what you're saying. Let me figure out what the problem is and see how I can get back with you, right? But yeah, and then they start yelling at the customer success. Like I've been in those meetings before, but because you have to keep your composure, you have to tell them, "Hey, I hear you," but at the same time, you're like, you don't know what you're talking about. Another one that I'll tell you that the hard ones are the ones where you have the security people who maybe aren't up to date on modern technology. And I don't want to name any names or customers, but like you'll get in there and you're talking cloud security, right? And they'll ask you, and you'll be like, "Tell me a little bit about your environment, right? I want to know, how Orca can come in and how we can help." And they'll be something along the lines of like, "Yeah, well, how do you integrate with the firewalls that I have in the cloud?" And you're like, "Oh, okay, like you have firewalls in the cloud." Yeah, we have this brand of firewall that we put in there. We had them on prem and we just put them in the cloud, and we use GigaOM inside of there to do some network monitoring. And you're like, "Oh, okay, like let's go back and let's go back and do some cloud 101 maybe and see if we can." I feel like we're already lost. I think we've lost the thread.
So what do you learn from those? The being shouted at, the guy who clearly doesn't have a clue what he's talking about, but you have to kind of like feed his ego or her ego. Like, what do you learn from those as lessons?
I mean, I think you learn how to handle people different. Like everybody's different, and I think it's just a lesson in handling people. Like I've taken people from like they got mad at me, and then at the end of it, like they were thanking and sending notes saying how much they appreciated the time. Right? I think it's um, my wife is a neonatal nurse practitioner, right? And so she has taken many courses on dealing with the emotions of parents, right? And I think she can de-escalate a situation and turn it to where they see her as a trusted advisor. She's better at it than I am, and I think situations like that are where you learn from. You learn to hear, de-escalate, and feel like an advisor and not make it contentious, right? I think that's kind of what I learned from those is like hear what they're saying, what's really bugging them. You can't always win. Like there are some customers that for whatever reason don't want to hear it, right? Maybe it's because they're just that way. Maybe they've had 6 months of the same conversation and they're just really mad. Maybe they like a different vendor more and they're just using you as a you know as a they're just angry at you because they want to get you out, and what I'm saying. Like there's all sorts of reasons. You can't win them all, but that's typically what I take from it is like just learn from how to deal with that person, hear what they're saying, treat them as an individual, and try and de-escalate rather than feeding back.
So in doing so, like you said before, you went into a field CISO role because you like people and you're sociable, but also to be successful in a field CISO role, you have to have highly functioning people skills. to be able to work with very different people, different situations, de-escalate them, and eventually it's all about getting to outcomes, right? It's not necessarily about a sales cycle, it might be about making that thing happen they want to do, which internally we don't want to do, right? We've all been there trying to convince R&D to build something they don't care about, but your customer really does care about. So I think that's interesting. You also mentioned you talked about your wife, you talked about this whole concept of de-escalate and become a trusted advisor. Now, I basically took a ton of Field CISO posts off LinkedIn and threw them into a model, as you do, and asked it what the most common criteria that it teaches is, or the most common saying of the Field CISO world. Do you want to have a guess, Tim, of what it is?
At the saying?
Yeah, what's the most common teaching or principle or saying that Field CISOs put into LinkedIn?
Man, that's a good one. It's got to be something customer related. I don't want to say the customer's always right. That's too cheesy and too.
It's not the customer's always right, but you're on the right lines of saying it's about customer.
The customer doesn't always know what they need.
No, but it feels like we're playing a game show. I'll give it to you. The most common thing in some way or form is saying this: products don't win deals, trust does.
Yeah.
That has been
I was going that way. That's the direction I was going. Okay.
Yeah, a million different structures that has been said. Products don't win deals, trust does, right? How do you build trust? Like, as a field CISO, you go into a room, you're seen as a salesperson a lot of the time, or you're seen as being non-operational, you're seen as coming into a room to try and de-escalate someone who's already pissed off with the company. How do you build trust? Is there a magic lesson that you've got for the world on building trust?
I got two. They need to know that you know what you're talking about, right? Like they need to know that you speak their language, you live their world, and that's a way of gaining trust. And I'm not saying that salespeople don't have the trust; like they have their own way of gaining trust. You see people buy from the same people over and over and over when they go to different companies, right? But I think that I've seen so many security leaders like their eyes turn to me and be engaging when I could speak their language, right? Like when they're talking about the problem they're having, I could take it and expand upon it. So yeah, I did that. I remember when I was having to create a new board deck, and I remember trying to figure out exactly what that board wanted to hear. Here's some of the things that I had to do. Or when I was rolling out cloud security over at this company, like these are some of the roadblocks that I had. Here's how I implemented it. And these are just some general thoughts. Like to just being able to speak their language is important. But I would even back up a little bit more than that, is say sometimes when I am doing customer calls and working with the sellers, I will even help them do a discovery call or the pitch call, because I think what we're really good at is understanding the problem, right? We're not trying to sell. We're not trying to, find exactly, what we can sell to them. But the key to selling, and I think this is why some sellers are really good too, is we get to the crux of what the problem the customer is trying to solve is, right? Yeah. If you go in and you're like, tell me about your environment. What are your security priorities? What do you want to do this year? What are you hoping to accomplish? What's the biggest problem that you have? What does your board care about? And then you say, well, here's how I can help is by, you may not need all of these things of the product, but right now you really need this parts. And here's how we can help you. And here's how we can make your life better. Sometimes that's meant in my past, I've told them like, we're not the right fit, man. Like go talk to this company or this company. Happy to make you a referral and hook you up. But like it's making sure you're trying to solve a problem and not just trying to find a problem to solve, I guess, like if that makes sense. So
you touched on two things that I think are fundamental. And I think they're what you're saying without using the exact words. One is integrity. You have to have integrity. Like you can't just be there to sell and to propose. And the second is authenticity or honesty. This fact that I sit in the room sometimes and go, one of our big competitors at Anecdotes is Vanta. I said, they would go, you're probably a better customer for them than you are for us right now. Like they will solve your problem better than we will. But you know what? Like if you have these problems, then we will be the best company for you. So let me know if things change, right? And I think that is what makes the difference between a field CISO who is trusted and a field CISO who is effectively the guy with the Rolodex. Let me ask you two kind of parting questions. So let's say an operational CISO, let's say Tim from years ago, sitting back at HealthStream, rings you and says, I'm thinking about becoming a field CISO. Question one, if you went back in time to yourself, would you say, yes, this is the right thing to do? Or would you say, you know what, let's take the course? Second question is, what's the one thing you would tell them that nobody told you that you wish someone had?
I would say I would still take the call. Like I think it's gotten me a lot of experience that I did not have before, and that's talking with people from all sorts of different industries, right? Whether it's security companies like us, large banks, healthcare companies, like it's given me a wealth of experience and helped me, I think, to help solve more problems because I understand like the selling motion. I understand a little bit more about that. Like I have the marketing experience with the product marketing and the analyst relations. Like I think the field CISO role and what it's kind of morphed into, at least in my case, it's kind of made me like a better technologist and a better, more well-rounded individual. So I would say, yeah, like it's been really great. And I
Okay,
would
I
say
like
do it
that. You
again.
take it again. But what would you tell yourself, or what would you tell this person who the thing you wish someone told you at the start, which no one told you?
Um, I think probably, um, you know, watch out for the travel. That would be one thing, I guess. Like
Mm.
that one bit me a little bit. I didn't realize the level. We've adjusted and it's great, and I wouldn't change that now because that's how you get out there. But I think COVID hit pretty soon after I um, took that kind of a role, and so obviously travel was not a big thing back then.
But yeah,
But
of course, you were weirdly a field CISO in COVID, right? When no one actually got on planes. Well, that
no
must
one
have been
got
a
on
joyful
planes.
role to have.
I know it was fantastic. I think that's probably one. Um, and then the thing that I would just say is like, know what your next step is. Like you want to go to a field CISO, just understand like, is that what you want to do? Is that a stepping stone to something else? Just kind of understand what that next step is that you want to do. Like, because it can be a role that you can sit in and be really good at, but it's also a pathway to other areas. To be frank,
Mm.
whether that's marketing, whether that's product, and you can set yourself on the right path if you just kind of understand like what your next step is.
Tim, thank you. This has been an absolute pleasure. Here's the takeaways that I took from talking to you. I think one is that you can't overplan your careers. Sometimes the opportunities come and you take the path that follows your passions and what interests you and the skills that you have, in your case, being too sociable to be a CISO. And once you get there, you
Ironically,
work.
I'm an introvert, by the way. Ironically.
I think most of us are. I think most of us in this space, I class myself as an introverted extrovert or an extroverted introvert, depending on how you look at it, right? So I'm with you. I think then you work out how to see if that is a stepping stone, a part of a journey, or it is the journey. And inside of that, when you decide that, you have to find this balance for burnout versus normality and trying to find structure inside of it. And then you have to work out how to be good at your job, which I think is this principles around you build trust through authenticity and through integrity. And by doing so, you don't become a Rolodex, you become an advisor who matters. And I'm an advocate. I think there should be more field CISOs. I think there should be more field CISOs who are doing the right things like you do and like Orca do that actually enable people to be this consultative voice in the room to help rather than just to try and drive to the ARR and the close of the deal. Tim, thank you very much. It's been an
Yeah,
absolute
James.
pleasure. Hopefully we'll have you on again soon in some different capacity. Is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't?
No, I think you hit pretty good. I like your questions, man.
Sweet. Cool. Then in that case, thank you all for listening. I've been Jay Bernardes. This has been Tim Chase. We will speak to you both again or all again soon. Subscribe, follow, like, and we'll see you on the other side. Peace.